Hello, welcome to Eden Hope Academy. We are on week 2. Are you ready? Do you have your books? Get them out, give them a wiggle, and let's start on Bible. You ready? Oh, look, we've got Annabelle, and we've got Asa, and we've got Camden. Oh, you know, Asa and Camden are in our Midland campus, and they are good friends. And Miss Annabelle is in our Reston campus. And then we've got Bella, and we've got my Bo, who you see a lot on videos. So let's go on to Bible. And our Bible verse, let's read it together. It says, "For you, O Lord, will bless the righteous with favor. You will surround him as with a shield." Now, who's the righteous? The righteous are those who are following God's will. The righteous are the ones who love the Lord with all of their hearts. And it says that God will surround them with a shield. And so I want you to draw a picture of yourself with the ways that God protects you and surrounds you with the shield of His love. Can you do that? Maybe put a big shield up or something like that. But remember that God is always with you and He is always protecting you. Okay, let's go on. We're moving fast today, aren't we? Let's go on to history. And it says, nationalism, imperialism, alliances, and military investments. These were the factors that led to World War I. Tsar Nicholas II, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and King George IV were grandsons of Queen Victoria of England. They were notorious in World War I. All right, so let's go through that really quickly. Nationalism. That is when you think that your country, or people thought that their country was better than any other country, and so they were snobs, let's be snobs, to any other country. And that is not, nationalism is not when you're just proud of your country because you know your country has done a lot of good things. Nationalism is when you're prideful about your country, which is totally different. Alliances. That means that they had these secret alliances. So let's all be secret with our alliances. And so, for example, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany made an alliance with Austria-Hungary, and he said, if something happens to you, I will protect you. And they said the same thing back. But then they didn't tell anyone else. And King George made an alliance with Belgium, and they said the same thing. And so when they started getting testy with each other right before World War I, it just escalated and got bigger and bigger and bigger because it wasn't just Germany against Belgium, it suddenly was Germany against England and Belgium because they had alliances. And then military buildup. Now, why were they building their military so big if they weren't going to use it ever? Well, that's the thing. We're going to talk about that with Wilhelm II. All right, so let's go on to, we want for you to draw a picture of some of the World War I leaders looking prideful. Now, why do we say that? Why should they look prideful? Well, because as we learned in our video this week, Wilhelm wanted his place in the sun. He wanted Germany to be great. And he caused millions of people to die for that. And then he got exiled, and Germany wasn't so great. And it was very impoverished, and many people died because of the decisions that he made. And so that pridefulness, it led not only to his own destruction and fall, but it led to the destruction, the demise of millions of people. So that's one of the reasons that pridefulness is so not what God wants us to be. So draw a picture of them being prideful. All right, next we have Gladys Aylward. She is our missionary hero for this week, and she was an amazing person. So let's remember back just last week to Eliza George. Remember her? And was she told, yes, go into the mission field in Liberia, and we know that you're going to do a wonderful work for the Lord. Was she told that? Let's go, not at all, right? Well, same thing with Gladys Aylward. They said, and she was English, she was British, and the Missionary Society at the time said, you can't go to China as a missionary? Are you joking? You don't have the education, you don't have the money. No. And so she did not give up. In fact, she became a helper, like a maid in one of the missionary leaders' houses so she could learn as much as she could because she wanted to go to China so badly. And she finally earned enough money, and she didn't earn enough money to go via ship. She had to take the train to China. So she went on do you know what train she took? Did you guys say Trans-Siberian Railroad? I thought the same thing, and yes, she did. She went on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. She got to China, and she and another woman who was a missionary there had what was like a hotel, but they had, instead of trains, they had what they called mule trains. So they had routes, and they would have like 4 to 6 mules, like donkeys, and they'd be tied up to a really heavy wagon, and they would pull it on these routes to get goods from one town in China to the other. And so the mule train operators had to spend the night in kind of like hotels, but it would just be one big room with a kitchen. And so they would spend the night, everyone on the floor, and the people who ran the hotels would tell them stories. Well, Gladys and her friend told them stories about Jesus, but they didn't come at first. So do you know what she did? She was really cool. She would go out with barley straw, and she would get the mules as they were coming before, because, it'd be like 4 or 6 mules like this, and then the driver would be back here in the back of the train guiding them, and she'd run out with barley, and she'd go, oh, come on, come on, come on. And so the mules would go into her place, and so then the drivers had no choice. They had to spend the night there, and they had to listen to stories about God. And then the government came to her, and they said, we want to put you in charge of telling women to not bind the feet of their daughters. So what they would do is they'd put really tight wrappers on their feet, so their feet would become deformed, and so instead of a foot where you've got toes that you could move and all, the toes would kind of fall off after a while, and it just kind of be this stub. And they thought that was a beautiful thing, but it crippled these girls, and they couldn't run or walk, or they just had a really hard time the rest of their lives. And so Gladys was like, no, I have a ministry here. And the government was like, yes, you're going to do it. And she's like, no, I have a ministry here. And the government was like, no, you're going to do it, like now. And so she was like, oh, goodness. So she did it, and guess what? She got to know so many people through that job, and she got to be in relationship with them, and so she told them about God. And then the Japanese invaded, and all of a sudden, she'd already adopted several Chinese children, but all of a sudden, when the Japanese invaded, there were over 100 children, and they were orphans, and they had to get across a mountain pass by a certain date in order to be rescued, or else the Japanese would come in and they probably wouldn't make it. And so Gladys on her own brought over 100 Chinese orphans over a mountain range, and it took them several weeks to walk this, but on her own, she was able to get over 100 orphans to safety, and she was able to do that because she had made these relationships with the people, and they trusted her. And so it's just such an amazing story of how God orchestrates every single part of our lives so that when He needs us, we are ready to serve Him. So next we're going to go to the first part of our verse. This is in Link It to Me, right next to Camden. Everyone say, hello, Camden. And it says, the first part of our verse states, For you, O Lord, will bless the righteous with favor. How does God bless you? Can you think of 3 things how God blesses you? Maybe with a home and a family and a good mama and a good daddy. How about, how did God bless Gladys Aylward? Well, he got her the money, he gave her the money to go, and then he gave her such amazing ideas. How did God provide the funds for her to get to China? How did he bless her with a ministry? So we went through that. Can you say those things? How did being in charge of teaching families not to bind girls' feet bless Gladys? Do you remember what we said? I bet you do. I think you should stop, right? Pause just for a second. Go beep, pause. Good job. All right, how about you will surround him as with a shield is the second part. Gladys Aylward walked with many children over a mountain range so that they could be rescued. What are some of the ways that God surrounded her and the children? Can you pause for a second? Beep. Okay, are you back? All right. What are some of the ways God surrounds? Oops, we did that. How does God bless you, and how does God shield you? Can you talk about that for a second? So pause. Beep. All right. Are you back? Good job. Okay, let's go to page 2. You ready? Week 2, page 2. All right, and at the top we have a city from the early 1900s, and we have Henry Ford was rolling on his way, only went to school through the 6th grade. And in 1879, when he was 16, he marched up to Detroit and joined the Michigan Car Company. Henry Ford was splitting wood for big steam engine. Then he started as an engineer for Edison. He was learning skills which he would use to build the first gasoline-powered automobile and his very own car company. All right, let's talk about Henry Ford. So he only went to school until the 6th grade, and then when he was 16, he went to work for the Michigan Car Company. Now, Kim, I thought you said that he invented the car. Well, the Michigan Car Company wasn't like a doo-doo automobile company. They had train cars. So it was like a car company. And that's what they called cars back then. So that's why it sounds a little confusing, but it's not at all an automobile like we would think. And so what did he do for them? He split wood. So that wasn't a very noble job, was it? But it got him involved with people who were telling him how to put together engines and helping him along the way. And then he worked for Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison, remember, he helped define the light bulb and define how that would be. There were several other people who were inventing things just like the light bulb at the time, but Thomas Edison received a lot of the credit for it. And then he built his first automobile. But do you know what he did? He built it in his brick garage, and he finished it. He was so proud of himself, and he was like, oh, good, I'm going to go drive it. And then he went, oh, ruh-roh. Oh, no. Everyone go, oh, the door wasn't big enough. Yikes. He didn't plan on that. So guess what he had to do? They had to knock down a wall to get the car out. So he finally